Welcome to the Sports Card Lessons podcast with me, your host, Ken. I'm a retired teacher documenting my hobby journey here on the pod, finding teachable moments to share with all of you along the way. Don't forget to hit me up on Instagram at sportscard_lessons. Hit the follow button, and you can watch these episodes on the Sports Card Lessons YouTube channel. Welcome, everyone. How is everyone doing? If you're watching on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button, smash the like button, leave some feedback. I'm really excited for today's interview. You've heard me talk about him on a number of earlier episodes, setting up next to him at the last shows, at the Autograph Fest. He is a high-end dealer with a single case full of absolute fire. Welcome, Nick Valakas, on Instagram at The Slap Exchange. Nick, how's it going?
How's it going, Ken? I
Doing
wish I
well,
could
doing
say it's
well.
been I wish I could say it's been a while that I hadn't seen you, but I only saw you 2 days ago, so
Yeah,
that was short lived.
yeah. But it was a good day,
It was a
right?
great day.
It was a
It was
great
great to
day
see
to show.
consistency.
Yeah. So Nick, let's just start out. Tell the listeners who you are, how you got started in the hobby.
Yeah. So I I'm Nick. I started the Slab Exchange a couple of years ago. I initially intended it to be a trading third party trading platform, but due to my schedule and everything going on at the time, I was unable to get it off the ground. So everybody knew me by that alias, so I just maintained it and went forth with it. But in regards to collecting, I started as a toddler, just as most people. When I got to the level of middle school, I discovered women and collecting went to the wayside for a period of time. And then rewind to maybe 2.5, 3 years ago, I caught the bug just like everybody else did right before COVID and entered back into collectibles world. Um, at that time, it was a game of catch up. I was introduced to Rick Probstein, who took me under his wing and reintroduced me to the world and caught me up. And I basically hit the ground running. I started just like everybody else did, tried buying some wax, uh, whether it was hobby, retail, base cards, singles. And then I learned very quickly that was the wrong move, and I quickly adapted, pivoted, and got into more of the higher end collecting spectrum. And yeah, and the rest is kind of history. I've kind of maintained that, how would you say, that same level for till current day. So here we are.
So it's funny. When I first met you, you talked about my real estate business, and I always thought Nick's into real estate, and then you did a lot of stuff with Rick Probstein, and I said, oh, maybe he works for him too. And then it was, I don't know how many shows ago, it was a while ago, maybe last spring. And you're like, no, I'm a police officer. I'm like, wait. I mean, what is it that you don't do? Right. I mean, I had no idea that you were doing all these things and the cards, right, as well. So it must have been, I mean, being a police officer, doing stuff with real estate and then getting into the cards too. I mean, you must have not had any other room on your plate to do anything.
My plate has been definitely full, especially over like the last 5 to 7 years. I've been fortunate enough to be a police officer for the last 10 years. Kind of showing my age a little bit, but approximately 7 years ago, I got into the world of real estate and investment side of things, and I became obsessed with it and became my passion. During that time, when COVID approached, I had pending projects and there was a lot of uncertainty at the time. So just like everybody else, I hesitated and held back, held on to my money. And then you saw the big surge with collectibles and sports cards. And while everything else was put on hold in my life, I was able to turn to sports cards and memorabilia to kind of, I guess, appease me for a time and to, I guess, place my money for investment purposes. Uh, but to me, it wasn't just an investment; it was something nostalgic. Like I've told you and Rob before, it's just us now. We were little kids. It's nostalgic. We're grown up now. We're just big kids with more money collecting cards, and the fact that we can make money while doing it is just a cherry on top. Whether I was making money or not, I'm here for the long haul. I'm not going anywhere. I love it.
And that seems to be the sentiment too amongst people in the hobby, especially dealers at the hobby. When the market corrected and things have been down a little bit, people diehards are like, I'm just going to adjust. I'm going to adjust with the market and keep going. Where people, have really gotten out of the market, right? I mean,
Right.
I know a handful of people. I'm sure you must know, a number of people who kind of jumped into the hobby at the same time you did and jumped back out. But it's interesting that you talk about it was as an investment, right? So it just take a step back when you were talking about being in real estate and holding on and then coming into it as an investment. And the reason I say that, because when I look into your case, and you're right next to me, right, at all these shows, I mean, you can say, I have to say you probably have a 500,000 or more, sitting in that case. So probably when you look around, at any show, I mean, these shows that we're doing with Laz, there may be, you know, less than 5 people that have a case like yours at these shows. Right. So as an investment purposes, when you were buying these cards, in your mind, was it that I'm buying this as an investment, like somebody would buy stock or real estate? Um, or when you jumped into it, was it more nostalgia, saying, I love this card. Yeah, quote unquote, it's an investment, but like I'm just a big kid now, you know?
Right.
Yeah. Am I asking that the right way?
You are. I completely understand what you're saying. So for me, I'm not gonna lie to you. I initially jumped into it for the investment purpose because now all the money I was placing into real estate was just sitting there and not doing anything and not doing anything for me for that matter. So I it was the initial intention to use it as an investment. Once I got into it and I got up to speed, I then kind of recaught the bug that I had when I was younger. And I remember why I loved it. And it was just cool to have that same feeling just with new players. You can still collect the old players and you come across cards that you collected in your childhood, which really hit home. But also, you got to learn about the new players and the new products like Panini and Prism wasn't a thing when I was younger. So it was definitely an adjustment. I was used to Topps Chrome, Skybox, and all those. Like I love the '90s inserts myself. That's one of my favorite things to collect. But yeah, catching up with Prism Select, all those products was just new to me, and I was just like, wow. I was like, Topps doesn't own the market anymore. Like it was a shocker, it was a culture shock to me. But then like again, I just adapted, learned what there was to learn, and I got acclimated pretty quickly.
Hmm. And I think it's there's a generation there of people all that are about your age that kind of grew up with that and jumped back into the hobby. I think the majority of people who jumped into the hobby were in this that you like your generation. Um, and then younger, right? The people that came in, like these younger kids that all of a sudden realized, like, there's really nothing else going on, but I see all these people making a ton of money or a boatload of money on these cards. So I'm
Yeah.
just going to jump into doing cards versus, people who are actually, adulting,
Right.
right? Like you, like me. I mean, when I jumped into the hobby, I had my investments. I'm still investing. I'm still making investments, but I don't see, even though I'm a dealer, I don't see it as investments for me. I just see it more of, you know, a business slash I'm having fun doing it.
Right.
Right. So if things didn't go well in the hobby, I'm not losing sleep at night because I've got all my other investments. So for you, when you talk about investments, is this something that you're relying on, like a stock or a piece of real estate, or is this something that, even though it's an investment, it's still a business, and I'm still having fun doing it?
Right. It would be more so the latter. I quickly came to realization, especially with the economy being the way it is and the uncertainty in the hobby, whether my cards are worth X amount, like a few $1,000s, or they're worth maybe 10. I'm okay with it. At the end of the day, I went back to my collector ways, and that's what I see myself as. I entered the hobby as an investor, came out a collector once again. and I'm
Yep.
perfectly fine with that. I hear Rob saying all the time, he's like, hey, that's why you collect what you like, because whether these things are worth hundreds or thousands of dollars or worth zero, would you be satisfied holding on to them?
Mm,
So, and I truly do collect what I like, and if I am stuck with them for whatever reason or something happens with the market and it crashes, I'm perfectly fine.
nice. So changing direction just a little bit, and we were talking this weekend, and you talk about going to the Dallas show, the Chicago show, the Burbank show, the Mint Collective in Las Vegas, all these different shows. Um, how do they differ? And if you could just talk about, because I mean, I've been to national and I've been to these shows here, but I haven't traveled yet. And we've just talked about doing some traveling in the next, 6 to 8 months to some of these shows. But at these bigger shows, um, how does it differ setting up at, say, a Laz show here in New Jersey?
Well, Laz is more of the local type show, and for me, like the way I'll put it is, once you start traveling for bigger shows, like more national shows, uh, you're reluctant to do local shows, except for Laz. Laz is the one exception. Like, you have the Garfield show, you have Woodbridge, you have a bunch of different shows, but once you cross a certain threshold, you'll only do certain shows, and you have to be selective, because remember, traveling for shows or doing multiple shows in your local state starts getting expensive. $100 there, $300 there. You really got to pick and choose where you want to plant your seeds, and that's what I mean with the bigger shows. There's not as many of them, uh, but they're all, how do I put it? They're a little more spaced out. Like, for instance, the Dallas shows 6 times a year now, I think. You have obviously the Nationals annual. You have the Mint Collective, which is also annual. What am I missing? You have the Chicago Spectacular. I think that's about once every 6 months or quarterly. Um, yeah, and then Burbank. Burbank's a big hitter that just came into the card show industry, and they're making a big splash. So I missed the first one. I won't miss the second one, and I'm thoroughly looking forward to it. Um, just reference your question one more time.
Just like when you're set up at these shows, and you've got obviously a big case,
Yeah.
lots of big cards in your case, as far as sales. So I'm just going to take a step back. I talked in earlier episodes about being set up next to you and saying, this guy's doing it right. Like, here I am, I'm setting up wax, I've got boxes, I've got this case, that hey, it's so many things going on my table. And then Nick shows up with one case, he puts it out, and he says, well, you looked at me and said, if you need some more room, you could use some of my table. Like, you look at me like I was crazy with all the stuff I had on my table, right? You put one case out, the cards out, and you said to me, if I sell one card, I'm good. But
Yeah.
if I don't, I'm good too. Maybe I might buy a card. I don't know. So you were just so casual about it, and I'm like, so here's a guy that shows up with a sandwich and a coffee, and he puts his cards in, and that was it. I mean, you just sat back and waited for people to come to you. I thought, man, I need to start being more like Nick here. I need to start being more, with just being more simple.
Right.
Like designating a lane and being simple. But I think at these shows, these local shows, that may not work as well as some of the bigger shows. So I'd have to
Right.
imagine, you taking this case to a show like Dallas or a bigger show, that there's a lot more transactions happening at your table.
Right. That is true. But when I do local shows, it's more so I look at it from a consumer standpoint, right? When somebody's coming to a show and it's in their local area, it's usually typically on a weekend. People are not working. They have either themselves or their child with them, and they're like, "Hey, let's just stop by." We're opposed to international show, or not international. I'm sorry, national show. Uh, People are actually going out of their way to book tickets to travel to with the intention to transact. So that's why you typically see a higher volume of transactions happen, typically at a higher dollar value too, whether it's a trade cash or just straight cash.
Mm-hmm.
But from the dealer standpoint, yeah, for me, I do local shows just out of sheer pleasure. Whether I sell a card or I don't sell a card, I don't put too much stress or pressure on to make a sale. For me, at the end of the day, I could spend the Saturday morning and early afternoon at Laz's show just talking cards and being able to network. That's worth its weight in gold to me. I don't need to always press a transaction or try to press for a sale, because then it'll remind me of when I used to go to car shows when I was younger, where you had a lot of the old timers and they're just trying to uh, basically be like a car salesman to you. And if you didn't buy anything from them, they didn't want anything to do with you. I don't want to have that experience to the new generation. I want people to enjoy coming to shows, whether they buy anything or they don't.
So in your case, and I know in my case, when I go to shows, I have at least one or two cards that I really don't want to sell that I put in there, but I'm like, the price has got to be so right for me to sell this card. So in your case, what cards are those?
Okay. Let me, I put them aside. I kind of knew that might be coming. So let me just pull these out.
Now, is this Nick's PC, or is this just, Nick's favorite cards?
I would, it's my current cards in my collection, current favorite cards in my collection. PC stuff, I like to collect Dan Marino, Kobe Bryant. In regards to having cards in my collection in general, I like to collect the greats, the GOATs, like the Mike Trouts of the world, the Lionel Messi's, Tom Brady's. I am a Dolphin fan, but Tom Brady is Tom Brady, unfortunately. Thankfully, he's no longer my division. Where's my other card? Okay. So just pulling out a few. Oh, here we go. Okay. All right, I'll start off with this one. This is probably the biggest card in my collection currently. It is a BGS 10 2011 rookie year Mike Trout from Topps Finest with an on-card auto color match number to 25.
And that's a 10-10.
10-10.
BGS 10-10.
It's a very, very special card. Very aesthetically pleasing. Obviously a pop one, but a fun fact for that card, what a lot of people don't realize, and one was brought to my attention maybe a couple months back. Everybody's familiar with Mike Trout's Bowman Chrome card that he signed. He signed a bunch of them, many different parallels. But in regards to his rookie year, from what I was told, this is the only set that he autographed his rookie year of 2011, which definitely made the card more valuable in my eyes. Following that card is a card that I've been trying to track down for about a year and a half. I am a big Patrick Mahomes believer, and I don't think it gets as good as this card outside of his RPAs. But it's a 2017, I don't know, it's a little glare, 2017 Optic Hollow autograph.
My favorite card in your case. I was calculating my cards, like what could I move to buy that card? Week? I was checking that card out.
This is a card that definitely holds true to me, and one I'm very reluctant to let go. I only have two more. I told you at PC Dan Marino. This is a card I recently got. It's Ultimate Collection Pop 1 PSA 10. Beautiful, aesthetically pleasing card as well. One that will stay in my PC. I don't foresee me ever selling it.
Yeah, I didn't see that in your case this weekend. Did I?
I popped it in and out because there was a couple Dolphin fans, so I played a little show and tell. But yeah, that's one I'd like to keep private, as well as this one right here. It's not a card, but it's a badge / ticket of Tiger Woods' first Masters and first major win. You see these pop up every once in a while. I would love to get my hands on one that Tiger Woods has autographed himself, but those are not as easy to come by as this one. So
nice.
This is definitely a nice conversation piece.
Yeah.
But those are probably some of my favorites currently.
Yeah. I thought what was the soccer card you had that was all the rage this weekend? I thought that was going to come up.
Soccer. Well, I have. I basically put them in trios. So the one pair is another very attractive card is the red prism Ronaldo from 2014 World Cup prism. We are in World Cup season, along with the silver of his, which is very low pop. People fail to remember that silvers were once a true parallel, and they weren't overprinted like they were 2000, post 2019. The Messi is also
And there it
part of
is.
that set. Yep,
The
it
big
was a very
card,
popular
popular
card this
card.
weekend.
Yeah.
Everybody loves Messi. Ronaldo is having a little tough time at Manchester United, which reflected on his market, but hopefully he could bring his market back up via the World Cup and kind of shut up all his doubters
Yeah.
and show what kind of player he truly is outside of the political game. But yeah, that set is a very prominent set. I think it's severely undervalued. You see a lot of the cases and a lot of the hobby boxes go for quite a bit of money. And I know Golden Auctions has a World Cup, a sole World Cup auction coming up, and they have a lot of cards from that set. Very undervalued set, very low in pop. If you get your hands on one, I'd suggest it. Even not only for the short term, for the long term, I think it's a great hold.
So soccer seems to be one of those markets that, when something's happening, in the sport, that the cards are up, but as soon as nothing's happening, the card seems to drop down. Do you think that's going to change after World Cup? Do you think soccer may start holding higher value for a longer time, or do you think it's still going to kind of be roller coaster up and down?
I hope it does. Um, what I kind of reference back to is right before the Euro Cup last year. Obviously, due to COVID, it kind of messed up um the cycle of rotation from the Euro Cup and World Cup. Typically, they're 2 years apart, but this year they were back to back. If you look at the sales and the analytics from uh, Euro Cup of last year, there was a massive surge in soccer cards in regards to prices leading up to World Cup, and then it became performance based through. This year for the World Cup, I was expecting something similar, but obviously the economy as a whole was not stable enough to, I guess, uphold that same trend.
Hmm.
So it was a slight uptick, but not massive. But I do think this year's World Cup will be heavily performance based. I think if you see some of the great players do well, you'll see a significant surge in their prices.
Hmm.
Messi and Ronaldo being those two, they are set up in the right brackets to, if they succeed, they could possibly face each other.
Yeah.
So that would be epic.
And it's like that with any card, right? I mean, I remember this weekend, right? Tua, Jalen Hurts. I mean, these are two guys that are playing well in the NFL. These are the two guys people were looking for, like at the show. So yeah, it's going to be like that with
Right.
any of these games. If somebody really pops off during a game, or plays really well, I mean, I think that instantly the prices are going to rise on that.
Right.
Yeah, and I know people who are buying these the Prism soccer boxes, right? The World Cup, and all the cards are raw because nobody wants to take a chance of sending them off to PSA, and not have them back. So,
Right. Exactly. It's
yeah,
definitely a timing issue.
yeah. All right, switch lanes again. Let's talk about state of the hobby. What's your opinion of the state of the hobby?
I'm definitely optimistic. It's no secret that everything's down right now. I didn't get to go to the Chicago show this past weekend, but I talked to a few buddies that actually went and set up there, and they said it was very busy, and there was a lot of transactions happening and money flying around. So that, for one, made a lot of people feel well. Um, Going forward, the reason why I think there's a light at the end of the tunnel when a lot of people feel like there's no hope is this past Friday there was a documentary released. It's called, I think it was called Behind the Card.
Behind the
It
card,
was very well done. I think that's just the start of many things to start bringing the hobby mainstream. I think next up is the Golden Auctions reality show on Netflix. I think it's produced or going to be promoted by the same makers of Pawn Stars. So we all saw what how Pawn Stars turned out, and I think it will do very well. In regards to Golden, Golden's very prominent in the hobby. And now Netflix, we saw what it did for F1 and how prominent it made it in pop culture and mainstream media. I think it will have a similar effect for the card industry.
hmm.
Um, After that, we have Adam Sandler. He's in production with a movie that I think will bring a lot of light, comedic light, but light to the industry as well. So, with all these things coming up, I think people can no longer shy away and turn a blind eye to what's going on. I think, and I had this talk with you over the weekend. that when the initial boom happened, you had investors, you call them whales, for instance, that actually pivoted and entered the hobby and brought a lot of money into it. And there was other investors, big time investors, that heard about it but didn't decide to make that same turn. But now, if it's going to be in the mainstream and it's going to be involved with pop culture, at that point, you'll see a lot more people enter the hobby,
Mhm.
and as well as new money,
Mhm.
which only puts
Yeah, well,
everything
of
on the
course,
up.
there was a lot of new money that came in during, just before the pandemic and during the pandemic. And I talked about a few episodes ago, like I was one of those people bringing in the money,
Yep.
and I know the money I brought in, if 100,000 other people or 200,000 or 500,000, you start calculating that was a lot of new money that came into the hobby,
Yeah.
and uh, it's interesting to see how many people stayed and how many people left and how many people who left will come back that maybe just are taking a break right now
Right.
just to see where the hobby goes, because um I think from where the hobby was to where it went to and where it is now, it's going to keep it much more mainstream.
Mhm.
Even this weekend we had at Laz's show. I mean, the traffic, we had a lot of traffic at that show, and
We always do.
yeah, I mean, you always do. And, some people, you heard some people saying, a lot of traffic, not a lot of sales, but um, I think if you had things priced correctly and it was what people were looking for, they were willing to buy. I mean, I did zero trades. I did all cash sales this
Right.
weekend. Um, and I did have a lot of people come to my table with cards that, I'm being much more selective of what I'm buying. Because I kind of know what's selling. I'm in the hobby long enough, and I'm researching every day. I know where the sales are. I know who is selling and what is selling, and those are the cards I'm trying to get into. And
Right.
I'm sure by looking at your case, that's exactly what you do, right? As far as, because you don't have, how many cards are in your case? If I,
Uh, I typically, any show I go to, I won't fill up more than two showcases. For like a more local show, I'll try to keep it to one, maybe anywhere from 25 to 30 cards,
Mhm.
and maybe like a big piece. Like I had a Jordan Type 1 photo along with me that I value pretty greatly. It was just a good showpiece to bring out and have people take a look at because it was from one of his iconic moments. But most of the time, I travel light. I'll bring anything to fill up one or two showcases.
Mhm. So when you travel down to Dallas or out to another show, um, same thing, one case, two cases.
Typically the bigger shows, I'll try to fill up two showcases,
Yeah.
anywhere from like around 50 cards.
Yeah. And the difference of the additional cards that you put in those cases, higher end, lower end,
Uh,
compared to what you put out. Do you just bring your selective top end cards when you go to the local show, or?
with the local shows, you're able to bring some things that are a little more lower end, like that are worth a few $100 or maybe like 1,000 or 2,000, as opposed to when you go to the bigger shows, you want to bring out your big guns. You want to, because you never know who you're going to run into, especially with people traveling across the country to that one location. Hey, if you have a Steph Curry card and somebody came from all the way in California, hey, guess what? More than likely they'll be interested in that card.
Mhm.
You're gonna get people from all over the place rather than us being in New York, New Jersey area, and you're gonna see very prominent fan base of the Jets, Giants, Knicks,
Mhm.
Rangers.
Mhm.
You could try to kind of assume what people are going to want in the area. When you go to the more the national shows, that you could get a mosh podge of many different collectors.
So when I go to Dallas, I bring my Emmett Smith 101 card, on card auto. That should be a big seller there in Dallas.
That won't last long over there. Trust me,
I
they
know.
they love their Cowboys. They make
Yeah,
that very known.
yeah. So real quick before we finish up, I know we were talking over the weekend about the golden auction, and I know you wanted to discuss that a little bit. How you feel that will help the hobby,
The Golden Auction show or or you mean the Lucas sale?
the Lucas sale.
Oh, Lucas Sale from PWCC. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
PWCC. Yeah, yeah.
So with the Lucas sale, there's a lot of back and forth whether that sale was good or bad for the hobby. Um, I see it as a great thing, because I do feel even aside from that sale, we've reached a new floor in the hobby, right? I don't think we're ever going to see pre-pandemic prices in regards to the like the rare cards or the most cards that are desirable, but I think the Lucas sale reflects that because if people could recall when the boom happened, I felt the Luca card was the leader of that boom. It led the charge. That sale happened, and it was all over media outlets, news channels, newspapers, and it definitely brought a lot of attention to the hobby at hand. Um, Knowing that the economy is down, people don't know how much it's down. People hear recession quite a bit. So when that card sold for just over $3 million, I I talked to people prior to that sale, and they expected it to go from anywhere 1 to 1.5. So to double that expectation was definitely something that I think allows us to realize, hey, we're leveling off here. I don't think we're going to keep declining per se. I think we're at a stable floor, and I think it'll only go up from here.
Hmm.
I could be wrong. I'm not Nostradamus, but I'm definitely optimistic about this hobby, and I do see a lot of good things happening. A lot of things happen behind the scene, publicly, and at the card shows. I think card show is a good indicator as to what people want, what people are going to be expecting next, and how excited people are for the upcoming new year.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that with the hobby now, last year with football, you had all these rookie quarterbacks coming in, and now this year, the rookies aren't so exciting with football. Um, do you think it's the hobby being down, or do you think people are just there's not enough chase to be chasing after, um, wax, to be chasing after breaks? Do you think it's because of the prospects coming out of like I know football, so I'm using football, but it may be the same for basketball and baseball too. I don't know,
Right.
but I know that the breaks are down, and the wax sales are down. You go to the retail wax. You see at any retail store, the shelves are full of wax now.
Right.
You see online that these prices are dropping tremendously on the hobby boxes that are starting out at $400 or $500, and now they're down under 300. They're in the twos.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
I do feel the draft classes and prospects matter. We were fortunate enough to back in 2020 to have a phenomenal quarterback draft class, in just in regards to football, with Herbert, Burrow, Tua, Hurts. We had like
Jefferson.
a surplus
Yeah.
of prospects and quarterbacks. The year before that, for basketball, we had Ja Morant and Zion, and a few selected others. Now, this year, in regards to football, I think outside of I'm talking about the year, this upcoming year, outside of 2021 class with Trevor Lawrence, I think that could be very similar to 2020, depending on how they progress. But Kenny Pickett's uh, rookie year, I think, is similar to 2019 when Kyler Murray was coming out. He was pretty much the only prospect to go after in regards to quarterbacks, and I don't think anybody other than maybe for the Giants fans, Daniel Jones was also out of that class, but he didn't really progress until recently. Until somebody steps up from Kenny Pickett's draft class, I think he'll be the only prospect to chase. In regards to basketball, I know the Cade Cunningham is a pretty popular prospect. Uh, I don't think we could compare him to, say, like a John Morant or anybody. So I don't think the hype is there for him. But for next year, we could possibly have Victor Wembanyama, which you're going to see the hobby take a insane spike once their products come out, because he's going to be, from what a lot of people are saying, next coming of LeBron, or next superstar prospect, who whatever they want to label him as. But he is definitely talent. I've watched a lot of his games. I've watched his highlights. He's definitely a special player. I think it's going to cause a lot of excitement and pandemonium in the hobby when those products start coming out. So it just comes in waves. You can't have a great, fantastic draft class every year, unfortunately. But that's why you see a lot of people collect more so 2020, and they're after those cards as opposed to the 2021 class.
Yeah.
It offers them, hey, I've seen what this guy has done for the last 2-3 years. I feel comfortable investing my money in him as opposed to somebody just coming out of college.
Yeah. And I think these guys, especially with football, I think they need time. I do. You look at people who really, the quarterbacks who came to the NFL and spent a year, as a backup and learning before they started playing themselves. They played so much better than these quarterbacks that they're pulling out of it and they're starting them all. I mean, every quarterback, rookie quarterback from last year, the 2021 draft, all started for their team at one point or another during the season last year. And I just think it's overwhelming for them. I honestly don't think they give them, you put so much pressure on them and then you don't give them much of a chance to succeed out there. We look at, Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. These are guys that, they sat behind somebody, even when you look at any of the players in the NFL that get drafted, very few come out. You get a couple wide receivers, right? You get a couple linemen, things like that come fresh out of the draft that are starting because some defensive players that are starting for their team. But there's really not a lot of pressure on those guys, right? They're not the quarterback. They're not what everybody is watching. They're not what everybody's investing their money into. And I think that, we see Geno Smith how many years later, now he's playing well, right? Who knows if he was given more opportunities, early on, if he would have played that well or not.
Right. With quarterbacks, there's a lot of pressure. Remember, they're also the face of their team, and then if they surpass expectations, they could possibly be the face of the league. There's always a lot of pressure as soon as they step in. We're accustomed to growing up watching football and seeing a team draft a quarterback, and we're like, yeah, that's great. We'll see him in like 2-3 years, maybe 4, depending on how the veteran does, right?
Mm-hmm.
We weren't accustomed until recently seeing quarterbacks just being drafted and starting right away or starting within the first year. It was very rare. Like, remember, if you go back to Steve Young sitting behind Joe Montana, who else recently, more so Aaron Rodgers being behind Brett Favre for, I think, close to 5 years.
Yep.
Who knows what Aaron Rodgers could be on the statistical rankings if he got to play those 5 years.
Yeah.
But
even Drew Brees, remember they used to make commercials that Drew Brees being the backup. Right. Being a backup. Yeah. So
yeah, I'm saying you gotta, I think it's a massive learning curve for going from college to the NFL. NFL has kind of made it easier for the transition to happen, allowing quarterbacks to set up in sets that are more comfortable to them, like whether it's a pistol formation or a shotgun formation, to give them a little extra time to scan the defense and see what the defense is in, as opposed to being under center and then really watching the defense develop as he's dropping back. And then you also got to be in the right system. How many times I look, Geno Smith, like you just said, is a prime example. He played for the Jets. He played for a couple of teams. He very well just wasn't in the right system. Tua. His first 2 years, they changed offense coordinators on him. Learning an NFL playbook is not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
It's a significant learning curve. And
these kids are young. I mean, they're young. They're kids. I mean, when you think about their age, and they've got a lot of angry, enormous men coming at them.
Oh, yeah.
And trying to hurt them, right? I mean, not trying to hurt them, but trying to hurt them, right? I mean, honestly, it's, there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, I'm saying people are so are very easy to say, hey, like yell at the quarterback for making a bad throw or making a bad decision or throwing an interception. But hey, you want to see real pressure? Stand behind offensive line while you have a 265-pound guy coming at you at 4.4 speed, and see how fast you're going to give up and retire.
No, absolutely. Nick, it's been fun. I appreciate you coming on. Tell everybody where they can find you.
You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and that's about it. I keep it short and sweet. I'll be at the Slab Exchange, underscore in between each word. Yeah, if you guys ever have any questions or you want to reach out, by all means, I have an open door. Message me, DM me, find me any which way you can. If you see me at a card show, come say hello. I'm always more than welcome to have a conversation about cards and collectibles. So I am, again, transitioned from investor to collector once again, and I'm glad to be here, and I'm not going anywhere. So Ken, it's always a pleasure. Thank you for having me on. I look forward to doing this again.
Thank you, Nick. Good time.